Most people never become better because the moment improvement starts hurting, they assume something is wrong. That is the first lie comfort tells people. You thought growth would feel clean. You thought discipline would feel empowering. You thought becoming someone stronger would look motivational. But most real transformation feels like loss first. Loss of comfort, loss of distraction, loss of the version of you that everybody got used to. And that is why so many people stay exactly where they are, because pain confuses them. The gym hurts, so they quit. Studying hurts, so they procrastinate. Loneliness hurts, so they return to people destroying them. Discipline hurts, so they call it a not being themselves. People say they want change, but what they actually want is improvement without discomfort. And life does not work like that. Everything costs something. Confidence costs embarrassment. Discipline costs comfort. Peace costs separation. Growth costs familiarity. But most people keep negotiating with reality as if there is another option. There is not. You either choose the pain of transformation or the pain of regret, and regret is patient. That is the terrifying part. Immediate pain at least ends. Regret does not. Regret sits quietly in people for years. You see it in the exhausted man scrolling his phone at 2 a.m., pretending he still has time. You hear it in the woman laughing loudly around friends because silence would force her to confront her life. You feel it in people who constantly say one day because deep down they already know they are delaying the life they actually want. Most people are not destroyed by one massive failure. They are destroyed by tiny repeated acts of avoidance. That is how lives collapse, quietly. You skip the workout because you are tired. Then you skip again because motivation disappeared. Then months pass and now you hate your reflection, but instead of confronting the pattern, you blame genetics, stress, bad luck, lack of time. Because blaming reality feels less painful than admitting you betrayed yourself slowly. And this is where people ruin themselves, not in dramatic moments. In repeated negotiations with discomfort, every time you avoid necessary pain, you teach your mind something dangerous. You teach it that temporary comfort matters more than long-term growth. So now your brain starts protecting weakness. That is why discipline feels harder the longer you avoid it. You are not just fighting laziness anymore. You are fighting an identity built through repetition, because thoughts become habits, habits become actions, actions become results, and eventually results become your life. People love to talk about destiny while ignoring patterns. But your daily behavior is usually revealing your future in real time. That is the uncomfortable truth. The future is rarely sudden. Most people can already see where their habits are taking them. They just distract themselves enough to avoid thinking about it. And modern life makes this easier than ever. Now distraction is everywhere. Your phone wakes up before your purpose does. Your attention gets consumed before your own thoughts even form. People spend more time escaping themselves than understanding themselves. Constant noise, constant scrolling, constant stimulation. And underneath all of it is usually the same thing, avoidance, because silence forces honesty. Silence forces people to confront the fact that they are wasting their potential while pretending they are figuring things out. But deep down, most people already know. They know they are capable of more. They know their habits are destroying them. They know their excuses sound weaker every year. That is why some people cannot sit alone quietly anymore. Their own thoughts start sounding like accusations. And pain becomes necessary at that point, not because suffering is romantic, Not because struggle makes someone superior, but because pain interrupts illusions. Pain exposes truth faster than comfort ever will. The gym teaches this immediately. Your muscles tear before they grow. Your body resists before it adapts. The process feels ugly before it becomes visible, and life follows the same pattern. People want confidence without embarrassment, wisdom without mistakes, strength without pressure, success without sacrifice. But reality keeps humiliating that fantasy. Everything valuable demands discomfort first. Even emotionally, healing hurts. Nobody talks honestly about that part. People think healing means feeling better immediately. Usually it starts with grief. You finally stop distracting yourself and suddenly all the emotions you avoided begin surfacing at once. The loneliness, the insecurity, the shame, the anger, the exhaustion. And people panic when that happens. They think they are getting worse. Sometimes you are simply becoming honest for the first time. That honesty hurts because illusions were protecting you. Illusions about who you are. Illusions about your relationships. Illusions about your discipline. Illusions about your future. And once those illusions break, you cannot comfortably return to ignorance. That is why growth feels isolating. Not everybody can follow you into discomfort. Some people only understand the version of you that stayed small, the distracted version, the available version, the unserious version. The moment you become disciplined, people notice, not because discipline is loud, but because consistency exposes inconsistency in others. Your growth becomes a mirror, and mirrors make insecure people uncomfortable. So sometimes they mock you, sometimes they distance themselves, sometimes they suddenly call you a different you are. That is the point. People say they want better lives while protecting the behaviors destroying their current ones, and that contradiction creates suffering, because eventually reality collects payment. That is something young people rarely understand. Pain delayed is usually pain multiplied. Avoid difficult conversations now. They become broken relationships later. Avoid discipline now. It becomes regret later. Avoid responsibility now. It becomes dependency later. Avoid self-reflection now. It becomes identity confusion later. Everything unpaid returns eventually, and life charges interest. But the truth gets worse. Some people become so addicted to comfort that they start resenting growth itself. They mock discipline. They romanticize laziness. They celebrate distraction. They normalize mediocrity because excellence reminds them of their own avoidance. You see it constantly. People laughing at effort. People calling consistency obsession. People treating self-destruction like personality. Because if everybody stays weak together, nobody has to confront themselves. That is why environments matter. Weak environments reward comfort. Strong environments reward accountability. One environment slowly kills your future while making you feel accepted. The other forces growth while making you temporarily uncomfortable. And most people choose acceptance over transformation because humans fear isolation more than failure. That is why people remain inside circles that are destroying them. They would rather belong somewhere unhealthy than stand alone long enough to evolve. But loneliness changes meaning once you mature. At first, loneliness feels like rejection. Later, you realize solitude was protecting your future from people committed to staying stagnant. Some seasons of isolation are not punishment. They are construction. But nobody celebrates those seasons while they are happening, because becoming someone better often feels invisible at first. You wake up early and nobody notices. You stay disciplined and nobody applauds. You sacrifice distractions and nobody understands. Externally, it looks like nothing is happening. Internally, everything is changing. That is where real growth happens, quietly, without validation, without applause, without guaranteed outcomes. And this is where weak people quit, because they only stay committed when emotions cooperate. But emotions are unstable. One day you feel inspired. The next day you feel exhausted. One day you feel focused. The next day your mind wants escape. Discipline matters because feelings cannot be trusted consistently. Feelings change hourly. Consequences do not. That is something people learn too late. Nobody accidentally builds a meaningful life. You build it through repeated decisions most people avoid because they are uncomfortable, and uncomfortable things rarely look rewarding in the beginning. Reading feels boring before it becomes intelligence. Training feels painful before it becomes strength. Saving money feels restrictive before it becomes freedom. Boundaries feel lonely before they become peace. Everything meaningful feels difficult before it feels beneficial. That is the pattern people keep resisting. And because they resist it, they stay trapped in cycles they secretly hate. You can see it in modern routines. Wake up tired, scroll immediately, avoid responsibilities, consume distractions, delay important work, promise change tomorrow, repeat, then years disappear. That is the frightening part. People think destruction looks dramatic. Usually it looks ordinary. Average habits, average thinking, average excuses repeated for years, and eventually people wake up inside lives they never intentionally chose, a body they neglected, a mind they overstimulated, dreams they postponed so long they no longer believe in them. All because they kept avoiding small daily pain. Because pain feels immediate. Consequences feel distant. But eventually consequences become immediate too. And then people panic. Now they want discipline quickly. Now they want focus quickly. Now they want healing quickly. But transformation does not respect urgency created by regret. Growth still requires time. That frustrates people, especially people addicted to instant gratification. Modern life trained people to expect immediate stimulation for minimal effort, fast entertainment, fast validation, fast dopamine. But meaningful transformation is painfully slow, and slow progress feels invisible to distracted minds. That is why consistency is rare now. People quit before results become visible, not realizing invisible progress is still progress. The seed grows underground before anybody sees the tree. But people abandon themselves too early. They need proof constantly, validation constantly, motivation constantly. And without those emotional rewards, they stop. Which is dangerous because the most important changes in your life usually happen before external evidence appears. Your identity changes first. Your standards change first. Your mindset changes first. Reality follows later. But weak people only trust visible results. Strong people understand repetition eventually compounds. That is why discipline looks boring from the outside. Because greatness is usually built through repetitive actions nobody finds exciting. Wake up, train, study, work, reflect, repeat. No dramatic soundtrack, no cinematic speeches, just repeated uncomfortable choices. And honestly, that is what makes transformation so difficult. Not because the actions themselves are impossible, but because humans naturally crave relief. Your mind constantly searches for ease, for shortcuts, for escape. And sometimes that instinct protects you. Other times it destroys your future. Because comfort becomes dangerous when it becomes your highest priority. That is modern society's quiet addiction. comfort above all else. People choose convenience over growth so often they no longer realize they are choosing it. Food that weakens the body, entertainment that weakens attention, relationships that weaken identity, habits that weaken discipline. Then people wonder why they feel empty, because the human mind deteriorates without challenge. You were not built to endlessly consume. You were built to confront, to adapt, to struggle through meaningful resistance. Without resistance, people decay psychologically. That is why some of the most miserable people live the most comfortable lives. Everything easy, nothing meaningful, and eventually the absence of challenge creates internal emptiness. Humans need purpose. Humans need movement. Humans need responsibility. Without responsibility, people become fragile. Every inconvenience irritates them. Every challenge overwhelms them. Every setback feels catastrophic because they never developed endurance. And endurance only comes through pain, not theoretical pain. Real pain, failure, embarrassment, sacrifice, rejection, loneliness, discipline. Those experiences shape people. Not motivational quotes. Pain forces adaptation. That is why some people become wiser after suffering while others become bitter. One person learns, another person blames. One confronts reality, another escapes deeper into distraction. Pain reveals character more than it creates it, and eventually life reaches everybody. No amount of avoidance stops that. One day reality corners people, health issues, financial pressure, broken relationships, lost opportunities, identity crises, and suddenly all the small ignored choices become visible at once. That moment breaks many people emotionally, not because life surprised them, because deep down they knew. Most people know exactly where their habits are leading them. They just hope consequences arrive later. But later eventually becomes now, and that realization is brutal, especially when you understand how many years were wasted waiting to feel ready. People waste entire decades waiting for certainty, waiting for motivation, waiting for confidence, waiting for perfect conditions. Meanwhile, disciplined people move while uncertain. That is the difference. Courage is not confidence. Courage is movement despite discomfort, and discomfort never fully disappears. Even successful people feel resistance. They just stop negotiating with it. That changes everything. The average person treats discomfort like danger. Disciplined people treat discomfort like direction. That mindset alone separates lives, because most meaningful things sit behind temporary suffering. A stronger body, a clearer mind, financial freedom, self-respect, emotional stability, all expensive, all requiring sacrifice. And sacrifice is painful because you are grieving easier versions of yourself. The version that slept in, the version that avoided accountability, the version addicted to distraction, the version dependent on validation. People think growth is adding something new. Often growth is removing what has been weakening you for years. That process feels violent internally, because identity fights for survival, even unhealthy identities. That is why people return to toxic habits even after promising change. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. Read that again carefully. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. That sentence explains most self-sabotage. People stay in bad relationships because loneliness scares them. People stay undisciplined because structure scares them. People stay distracted because silence scares them. Not because staying stuck feels good, because it feels familiar. And familiarity can imprison people longer than fear. That is why transformation requires death in a psychological sense, not physical death, identity death, the death of excuses, the death of avoidance, the death of the weak patterns you kept protecting. And death always hurts. You cannot become someone new while emotionally protecting every old behavior.